before you heard these words, something unseen was already spoken about you, not out loud, not in public, but in the spiritual realm. An accusation was made, and you felt it without knowing why. You walked into rooms and felt resistance. You spoke truth and were met with silence. You carried a weight that never had a clear name, yet it followed you everywhere. This is not random, and it is not imagination. There was a sin placed on you that was never yours. You were treated as if you were guilty, yet no one could explain of what. You felt judged without a trial, corrected without evidence, punished without a charge. And the most painful part is this: you tried to examine yourself and still couldn't find what you did wrong. That confusion was not weakness, it was the sign. Because when a burden does not match the soul carrying it, the soul feels disoriented. You questioned your own heart. You replayed conversations. You searched your past, but the silence remained. That is because this accusation did not come from your actions. It came from assignment. There are sins that are committed, and there are sins that are transferred. You were not condemned because you fell. You were condemned because you stood. Your presence disrupted something. Your light exposed something. Your obedience threatened something unseen. So a label was placed on you. A narrative was whispered about you. A shadow was cast where there was no stain. And you felt it as heaviness. You felt it as delay. You felt it as being misunderstood by people who once smiled at you. You felt it as distance forming without explanation. This is what happens when the chosen are marked before they are revealed. Scripture says the enemy is the accuser. Not sometimes, always. And accusations do not require evidence when they are spiritual. They only require access. You were given responsibility early in life. You carried emotions that were not yours. You apologized for things you never did. You absorbed blame because your spirit was strong enough to carry it, but strength was mistaken for guilt. You were assumed to be wrong because you did not defend yourself. You were blamed because you remained calm. You were doubted because you did not fight back. That silence was interpreted as confession. But heaven never agreed with that verdict. There are moments when God allows the accusation to pass, not because it is true, but because it will reveal who is truly listening. People judged you based on fragments. They filled gaps with imagination. They assigned motives you never had, and you carried it quietly. You did not explode. You did not collapse. You endured. That endurance is why you are still here. If you had been guilty, the burden would have crushed you. But it didn't. It weighed you down, but it did not destroy you, because the sin was never yours. There are wounds on you that came from being misunderstood. There are tears you cried that God counted. There were nights you asked, "Why does this follow me?" And heaven remained quiet, not absent. Silence is not abandonment. Sometimes silence is protection. If God had answered too early, you would have fought battles you were never meant to fight. You would have defended yourself instead of being defended by Him. So He let the accusation hang. Not forever, just long enough. Long enough for truth to mature. Long enough for motives to be exposed. Long enough for false narratives to collapse under their own weight. You were blamed because you were different. You were targeted because you were pure. You were accused because your spirit could not be controlled. There is a reason your heart remained soft despite the injustice. There is a reason bitterness did not overtake you. There is a reason you kept loving even when you were misunderstood. That is not natural. That is divine restraint. Some people carry sin because they chose it. Others carry sin because it was placed on them. And only the second group is chosen for restoration. You were never meant to be destroyed by the accusation. You were meant to survive it. Because what comes next is not explanation, it is reversal. The same voices that questioned you will fall silent. The same eyes that doubted you will search for words. The same atmosphere that felt heavy will shift. But not yet. First, you must understand this truth deeply. If the accusation feels heavier than the crime, it is not your sin. If the shame feels disproportionate, it is not your guilt. If the punishment came without clarity, It is not your judgment. You were carrying something that belonged to someone else, and God saw it the moment it touched you. He did not remove it immediately because timing matters in justice. Premature truth is sometimes ignored. Delayed truth cannot be denied. So tell me this. If the burden you've been carrying was never yours, if the accusation was placed on you intentionally, if heaven never agreed with what was spoken over you, then what do you think God is preparing to do next? What you have been carrying did not begin with you. It did not originate in your choices, your intentions, or your heart. It was placed on you because someone else could not carry it anymore. There are burdens that collapse a person from the inside. Guilt that eats at the conscience, fear that refuses to stay hidden, shame that demands a host. When a soul cannot bear its own weight, it looks for a vessel, and chosen ones are often the strongest vessels in the room. You were not chosen because you were perfect. You were chosen because you were able to endure without becoming cruel, able to carry without becoming bitter, able to suffer without losing your sensitivity to God. That is why the burden found you. People transferred what they could not face. They projected what they refused to heal. They placed on you what exposed them. You became the container for emotions that were never yours. You absorbed tension that did not belong to your story. You felt responsible for outcomes you did not cause. And somehow you still showed up. This is not new. This is ancient. Joseph was accused by words he never spoke and actions he never took. He carried the lie of another man's house and paid for it with years of his life. Yet the burden was never his, it was the fear of exposure placed upon him. Jesus carried sin he never committed. He bore shame he never earned. He stood silent under accusations that did not align with truth. Not because he was guilty, but because he was chosen to redeem. David was hunted as a traitor while being faithful. He was called dangerous while protecting the kingdom. He carried Saul's insecurity and paid for it in exile. Job carried suffering without cause, no warning, no explanation. Friends blamed him for sins he did not commit, and he questioned himself until heaven spoke. Notice the pattern. The chosen are often accused not for what they've done, but for who they are. Their presence reveals insecurity. Their obedience exposes compromise. Their light agitates hidden darkness. So the burden is transferred. You were made to feel guilty for setting boundaries. You were made to feel sinful for telling the truth. You were made to feel wrong for not participating in what your spirit rejected. And instead of fighting back, you internalized it. You asked yourself if you were the problem. You questioned your discernment. You tried to adjust yourself to make others comfortable. That is how false burdens take root. Not through force, through confusion. You began carrying labels that did not match your heart. You accepted responsibility for emotional climates you did not create. You carried blame so others could avoid accountability. But hear this carefully. The fact that you could carry it without breaking is not proof of guilt. It is proof of calling. Weak vessels reject false burdens immediately. Chosen vessels carry them until heaven intervenes. God allowed this not because he agreed with the accusation, but because he was shaping your authority. Every false burden strengthens discernment. Every misjudgment sharpens humility. Every silent endurance builds spiritual weight. This is why you didn't become arrogant when you were overlooked. This is why you didn't become cruel when you were misjudged. This is why you still care when others would have hardened. That restraint is not weakness, it is training. The enemy places false sin on chosen ones hoping it will break them. But when it doesn't, it becomes evidence against him. He thought shame would silence you. He thought guilt would disqualify you. He thought confusion would cause you to abandon your calling. Instead, it refined you. Your pain was not pointless. Your tears were not wasted. Your endurance was not invisible. Heaven was watching every moment you chose righteousness while being misunderstood. Every moment you stayed gentle while being accused. Every moment you trusted God when clarity was withheld. That is why divine justice must come, because God does not allow false burdens to remain forever. He allows them long enough to reveal character. The same burden that weighed you down is now the proof that will lift you up. Those who placed it on you will be forced to face it again. Those who transferred guilt will encounter truth. Those who misunderstood you will recognize what they misjudged. Not because you demand justice, but because justice demands truth. You were not cursed. You were commissioned. You were not rejected. You were refined. You were not punished. You were prepared. And when God removes what never belonged to you, He does not simply restore your name. He elevates it. So if you have been wondering why the weight followed you, why the accusation lingered, why the burden felt unfair, it is because you were strong enough to carry it and righteous enough to be cleared by heaven. And now the season is shifting. The burden is loosening. The truth is rising. The calling is awakening. What was placed on you is about to be lifted, and what was hidden from you is about to be revealed. Because divine justice does not forget the chosen. There comes a moment when heaven intervenes quietly but decisively, not with noise, not with argument, but with authority. This is that moment. The weight you carried is being lifted, not because you proved yourself, but because God has judged the matter. The false charge has reached its expiration. The season of silence has done its work. What was placed on you without permission is now being removed with power. You may not hear an announcement. You may not see an apology, but you will feel the shift. Because divine justice does not ask for consensus. It does not need witnesses. It does not wait for human agreement. When God clears a name, it is cleared everywhere that matters. The accusation loses its grip first. Then the atmosphere changes. Then the narrative collapses. You will notice that the heaviness you woke up with for so long is no longer there. That constant need to explain yourself will fade. That inner pressure to prove your innocence will dissolve. Because innocence does not argue when justice speaks. What you endured was not ignored, it was recorded. Every misunderstanding, every quiet endurance, every moment you chose righteousness over retaliation, heaven kept count. And now the scales are tipping. The same truth that was delayed is now unstoppable. The same silence that protected you now exposes what was hidden. The same God who watched you carry what was never yours now removes it publicly, whether people realize it or not. This is how God restores dignity. He does not drag the past back up. He simply changes who holds the weight. Those who placed it on you will feel the absence. They will sense something returning to them. A discomfort they thought they escaped, because burdens always return to their rightful owner. You are not being vindicated through conflict. You are being vindicated through elevation. Your name is being spoken differently in rooms you are not in. Your spirit is being recognized where you were once doubted. Your presence is being felt where you were once dismissed. This is reversal, not chaos, order, not revenge, alignment. God is not punishing others for what they did to you. He is correcting what was misassigned. And correction feels like exposure to those who benefited from the lie. But to you it feels like relief. The weight falls off not all at once, but completely. The residue disappears, the stain dissolves. You are not restored to who you were before the accusation. You are restored to who you were always meant to be. Stronger, clearer, unburdened. There is a calm that comes with divine justice, not excitement, certainty. You stop replaying conversations. You stop rehearsing explanations. You stop fearing misinterpretation. Because when God declares you clean, no shadow can cling. You are no longer reacting. You are standing, and standing changes everything. People will sense something different about you. Not arrogance, authority, not pride, peace. You are no longer asking to be understood. You are being recognized. This is how God closes chapters. He does not slam doors, He seals them. The season where you were misunderstood is ending. The chapter where you carried false guilt is complete. The assignment that required silence is fulfilled. Now comes movement, not rushed, directed. You are stepping into spaces without the old resistance. Opportunities will open without explanation. Favor will replace friction. And you will know it is not because people changed their minds. it is because heaven changed the verdict. You were never disqualified, you were delayed for precision. And now precision has arrived. Your name is restored, your identity is affirmed, your calling is activated. You do not need to announce this shift. You do not need to convince anyone. Truth does not chase acceptance, it commands alignment. And alignment is happening now. So hear this clearly and let it settle deep within you. You are not what they accused. You are not what they assumed. You are not what they projected. You are what God declared, clean, chosen, justified. The false sin has been removed, the record has been corrected, the burden has been reassigned. Walk forward without hesitation. Speak without fear. Stand without apology. This chapter is closed, and what comes next will not require you to defend who you are. It will reveal it.